Descent of the Demon God. By Hanjo Wiolia. Chapter 201. Bamut Underground Prison. Part 1. A portrait of Arisha? Chen Yuan looked at the portrait with surprise and doubt. The face that was a blazing flame resembled the appearance of his advanced awakening, but Chen Yuan couldn't understand why Arisha had the same form. Isn't Arisha a god? Chen Yuan was a member of the Sky Demon Order, meaning that he also worshipped a demon although his god was absolute. He was even considered the demon god because he had a position that other humans couldn't reach. God, does this term refer to the transcendent being that humans speak of? Right. From whom did Master hear about Arisha? Shekinah. Shekinah? The Heart Hunter? The Grand Duke looked like he was trying to remember anything he knew about Shekinah. Actually, although he was a Grand Duke and didn't take note of any demons of count title or lower, he was aware of Shekinah because she was known for her phasing ability. Did you bring that child? He asked with a bit of anticipation. He and the other Grand Dukes coveted her, but she constantly refused to obey anyone other than the Demon King's command. Master is truly blessed with talent. It is rare for that child to come under one's command. He spoke calmly, but an underlying bitterness could be felt. Unexpectedly, it seemed like Grand Duke Kaliaf liked to joke around lightly. In fact, this was why the demons under his command followed him so willingly. Why does it matter whom I heard it from? I guess the current generation thinks of Arisha's existence that way. What do you mean? In response to Chen Yuan's question, Grand Duke Kaliaf stood in front of the frame. We have a very close relationship with the planet Earth, probably because Earth was the first place our gate opened to. I didn't know that. While they talking about Arisha, the topic of Earth had come out, intriguing Chen Yuan. At Chen Yuan's response, Grand Duke approached a bookshelf near the frame and pulled out a book. The book was written in English and not the demon language. Conscious beings form language and writing to express their will and leave records. And such a language system forms a culture which soon grows into a tribe or a group. So? It is the same with our clan. Naturally, the clan created its own language. And he pulled out another book, which had words Chen Yuan couldn't understand. The language written looked similar to what was written on the scroll with Arisha armor. I think the current generation will soon start using the language of Earth with ours and create a natural flow. What do you mean? Arisha, we now call it that out of convenience, but it was supposed to be called Larisha. Larisha? It's difficult to pronounce, so we naturally called it Arisha, as our warlike clan has long revered the darkness and fire. At that, Chen Yuan felt a strange familiarity. The Sky Demon Order, too, revered a demon as its sacred image. The word demon meant evil for the Sky Demon Order, but it also meant of darkness. Where do you think Larisha came from? Hearing the Grand Duke's question, Chen Yuan thought of Risha, which seemed familiar. Risha was none other than the nickname that the other demons were calling him. Didn't you say that Risha meant the best warrior of your clan? Right. But Risha means fire, before being a warrior. Fire? Our clan thinks the best warrior is a hot, burning flame. With that, Chen Yuan looked at the portrait again, and opened his mouth when he looked at the black flame wearing the armor. Then the law means darkness? Correct, you're smarter than I thought. It means darkness and fear. So that's why this being is called Larisha? Right. Larisha, or rather Arisha, literally meant black flame to the demon clan, and realizing this, Chen Yuan could guess the Grand Duke's intention now. The Grand Duke had told him that Arisha's existence didn't mean the god he thought, but actually referred to someone who had actually existed. Today's generation doesn't know all of this. Larisha. No, Arisha is a legendary being in our clan who became a symbol. As if remembering something, Grand Duke Kaliaf looked at the portrait. Larisha used to exist, is what you're trying to say? Right, which is why I wanted to answer your question. My question. This only made Chen Yuan more curious. Why was the form in this portrait the same as his advanced awakening? It felt too similar to be a coincidence. Then, answer what I asked. Even this Grand Duke doesn't know. Chen Yuan snorted at those words. It had only been a few hours since he even learned of advanced awakening, but now was fully engrossed in its underlying significance. This time I'll ask. If a demon named Arisha actually existed, whoever they were, then why are they now a legend? Arisha is the predecessor of the Demon King. Predecessor the Demon King? Chen Yuan didn't see this coming. The demons themselves were old, so of course they had age-old ancestors. However, Chen Yuan had overlooked just one thing, their life. The same Demon King who has ruled the clan for 8,000 years. 8,000? Chen Yuan's was surprised. The lifespan of the demons was unimaginable for a human. Chen Yuan, with his immortality, could definitely live that long, but it was still amazing to hear. Wow, he's lived for a long time. Hoo, even I, the Grand Duke, have lived for more than 5,000 years. 5,000? Huh? The lifespan of demons was strangely long. The reason Grand Duke Kaliaf must have thought of himself as the candidate of the Demon King was because he lived the longest. His longevity was a sign of strength and comfort to the clan. Why does Master think that I wanted to have a conversation with you like this for? Chen Yuan looked around. He could feel the entire castle with his senses, but couldn't hear anything. The place was soundproofed. Is the answer something that shouldn't leave this place? Grand Duke nodded. Arisha is just a myth for the demons in the current generation, but for me, Arisha is a thing of the past. What are you trying to say? Arisha suddenly disappeared. Disappeared? Actually, this is something I heard from our current Demon King, who was a Grand Duke at the time. The current Demon King who disappeared used to hold the Grand Duke title. The current generation of demons knew that he was someone recognized by the previous Demon King and inherited the title from them, but the truth wasn't known by many. The current king had said that Arisha no longer existed and that he inherited Arisha's power. The Demon King's position was a result of ignoring all the laws and procedures. Using the king's precedent, Kaliaf was a candidate for the Demon King. According to the law, the greatest warrior must challenge the Demon King in a battle held by the Grand Dukes. When the challenger's power was recognized, the succession was then prepared. So what happened? It's as you can guess. You just allowed it? There was no way for me to allow it or not. The clan was at war at the time, as they weren't the only strong clan on their planet. There was another clan with almost as much power as them. We had been going through a long war with Talish's clan, and it was so fierce that if the balance had been shaken just a little, we would have collapsed. Talish's clan. They were known as the White, or Pure, Ones. During the war between clans for power on the planet, the demons decided that it would be dangerous if one of the Grand Duke didn't follow the rules and had a battle with the Demon King, so Kaliaf had to accept the results. It also wouldn't have been a fair fight. Aside from what happened, he had inherited the spirit of Arisha within him and was already being called the Dragon King. Grand Duke Kaliaf was smart, and it was only because of his good judgment that the clan had survived this long. Of course, many sacrifices were made along the way. After the end of the third long war with that clan, I decided that I wanted to try to uncover the hidden truth. Uncover the hidden truth? Why would you do that? Arisha was someone I truly admired. It was hard to believe that such an existence would just get up and disappear without a word. Out of his own curiosity, he investigated Arisha's traces and tried to figure out all the deeds of the previous Demon King that would lead to a reason for him to disappear. But it was too late to find any worthy leads. Due to the long war, Arisha's supporters were killed and those in the royal castle were all under the current Demon King. The Demon King noticed that I was moving differently and warned me. You mean no more searching? Right. Grand Duke Kaliaf hadn't ignored that warning. The war was basically over, but because too many in the clan had died, rebuilding would take a long time and he needed to devote his efforts to helping the clan. In the midst of it, Grand Duke Kaliaf knew that if he decided to look beyond his doubts and uncover the truth, the internal riots would destroy the clan. He has the qualities of a good leader. Chen Yuan understood that much about the Grand Duke. Although they had only known one another for a couple hours, Grand Duke Kaliaf was by no means the type to avoid fighting or death just because he was afraid of something. Therefore, he must have been seriously worried about the clan to heed the Demon King's warning. Well, you didn't really have any leads to find Arisha anyways. That's not all. What? At that time, there was a strange rumor going around. Rumor? The rumor came from one of his aides, who claimed that Arisha abandoned this planet and left for another planet. Another planet? Upon hearing the rumor, the Grand Duke tried to find out who this information came from. However, despite the Grand Duke searching extensively for the source, the aide's existence had suddenly vanished. Because the Demon King decreed that those who spread false rumors would be punished by law, no one talked about it again. Listening to the Grand Duke, Chen Yuan clicked his tongue. So in the end, you couldn't find anything certain about Arisha's whereabouts? No solid evidence or information was found. The Grand Duke, who seemed embarrassed at his incompetence, stroked his beard. Ahem. Unfortunately, that was the end result. But considering the Demon King's reaction, I thought that the rumors that Arisha disappeared made sense. You mean about Arisha leaving for another planet? Yes. At that, Chen Yuan frowned and said, So where are you going with this? You think that I am that Arisha who left to another planet? The Grand Duke didn't answer and just looked Chen Yuan in the eye. His eyes weren't confident, revealing that he did have some doubts. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. I was born on Earth and my mother and father were humans, Chen Yuan said. Earth? You were born there? Yes. Hearing Chen Yuan's confirmation, the Grand Duke's eyes fluttered. Seeing the seriousness in Chen Yuan's eyes, he was convinced that Chen Yuan could be related to Arisha, but now he was completely flustered. Huh. No way. With a serious expression, the Grand Duke asked. Then why is Master, a human from Earth, gathering Arisha's weapons? This was the second reason that convinced the Grand Duke, the weapons of Arisha that Chen Yuan had. At first, he thought Chen Yuan only had the sword and wheel, but he was shocked to learn that he in fact had 5 of them. Hearing the Grand Duke's question, Chen Yuan fell into thought. After seeing the drawing in Hagar's safe, Chen Yuan had decided to collect them, and he was quite faithful to his greed. However, it would be difficult for Chen Yuan to explain that his desire came from greed and the way he acquired the weapons were unexpected in most cases because he never deliberately went anywhere to find them. Everything had occurred by chance. Coincidence? Wasn't it said that if coincidences overlapped, then it must be fate? As if the weapons were meant to be owned by Chen Yuan from the beginning, they kept finding their way to him, starting with the Sky Demon sword. This is strange. It felt like he was unlocking something hidden inside his mind. Grand Duke Kaliaf had inquired about it in a way that caused ripples within the calm lake that was Chen Yuan's mind. Whoa! A red light flashed from the entrance of the room, causing Grand Duke Kaliaf to take a deep breath and say, Phew, we'll talk about this later. It seems like a guest has arrived. When Grand Duke Kaliaf opened the door, Duke Bevman was standing there with a puzzled face, prompting the Grand Duke to ask. Bevman, didn't you say you were going to Bamut? After the oath, Bevman did lead some of the forces to the underground prison to save his daughter Marquis Irene, so why he was here? Thud. Going down on one knee, Duke Bevman asked, Your Highness, please help me. What happened? The field to enter Bamut isn't opening. It isn't opening? The field, or force field, was the location of the entrance to the prison. The force field wasn't artificially created but rather a natural phenomenon that occurred at the entrance to the canyon where this dungeon was naturally formed. Originally, the force field was opened using a special device. The force field seems to have gotten stronger. At those words, Grand Duke Caliph couldn't hide the shock on his face. The force field caused by the planet's natural movement was a collection of energy so great that even the Grand Duke couldn't penetrate it. Even if they could use all of their energy to go in, they wouldn't be able to come out. Chun Yuan said. Can't we just use the gate? In response, Duke Bevman replied. It's possible to use it to go in, but not to come out. What's that supposed to mean? Inside Bamut prison, measures were taken to ensure that gates couldn't open to the outside. These measures were taken to prevent the prisoners from escaping, meaning that entry was possible, but exit was not. Unable to look at Chen Yuan, Duke Bevman spoke in a low voice. Phew. His daughter was trapped there because of the plan they had come up with, but now that he had taken the oath of allegiance, there was no way he could try anything. Chen Yuan asked. Then should we destroy the force field? Duke Bevman couldn't hide his complicated feelings and exclaimed, why yes. Bamut underground prison. It was the only entrance and was blocked by the force field, which was why the He prison had lasted for so long and no one had ever escaped. However, that wasn't the only thing scary about this place. The fact that the force field was at the entrance meant that a different force was acting from the inside. The power at the source of this force field made the demons seem helpless. Tat attack. Someone was running through the dark dungeon, Marquis Irene. Gasp. Because the gravity inside stronger than outside, it was too hard for Marquis Irene to run. She had no more energy left to use, and the air inside Bamut made her weak and exhausted. Weak. She could hear footsteps following her, which only made her more anxious. Marquis Irene's goal wasn't to talk with those following her. Her clothes were torn, almost looking like rags. Damn it. Curses sprang out of her mouth as she ran. This was the most terrifying situation a demon had probably ever been in, and in addition, the place was so dark that she couldn't even see anything. Whoa. The only thing that motivated her to run was her ability that wasn't displaying anything, meaning that no one was around. As long as she could use her ability to scout out her pursuants, she could maneuver away from their grasp. She glanced behind as she continued to run. 284,000, 179,000, 234,000, 365,000, 220,000. She was shocked at the outrageous numbers. Every single number her ability analyzed seemed to show scarily increasing power levels. She didn't know if this was because the prisoners were survivors here or prisoners for a long while, but she knew for sure that they were way too strong for her to handle. I can't get caught. If she was caught, she would turn into their toy and die. She had to survive and get out of there. She kept running with that thought in her mind guiding her. Bang! Suddenly, the floor was crushed as something popped out and grabbed her ankle. Whack! Shocked, she tried to use her power to remove its grasp, but instead of moving away, the thing that grabbed her instead lifted her up. Ack! Caught upside down now, Marquis Irene screamed out of pure terror. She couldn't see very well, because she was in the dark, but she knew that it was a prisoner. And, of course, that she was upside down. Hoo, a woman. It looked like the prisoner was licking his lips. Marquis Irene felt the goosebumps appear across her arms and along her body. Chuck. Terrified, she stretched out her hand and spewed out a spider web-like substance, but the prisoner holding her tore it down. 492,000. This number filled her with the most fear she had ever felt, as this man was twice as strong as her. she wouldn't be able to even put up a fight. "Dee, do you know who I am?" "I." Tear. Her top was ripped, revealing her bare body as she went silent out of fear. Yes, you are a woman." The savage in the dark drooled out of lust. Here in the prison, she was no longer Marquis Irene, but just a woman. The savage, smelling her bare body, hummed with pleasure, nice fragrance." With that, she screamed in panic. "Kayak!" Then, in the dark space, a green flashlight beam shone and pierced the prisoner's shoulder. Quack! Thud! Luckily, the Marquis was released and she fell to the floor. Pierced in shoulder, the savage prisoner seemed to be in pain as he looked back at the source of the light. Whoa! In the darkness, a green glow was emitted as a strong presence appeared. Seeing this, the prisoner was frightened and bowed to the newcomer, shouting, "K King." It seemed that he was afraid of the being with the green eyes. A grotesque voice came from the green-eyed being. "Everyone in the underground belongs to the king." Chapter 202. Bamut Underground Prison. Part 2.
Content warning. This chapter may contain scenes that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audience.
A light was flowing through round marbles. Thanks to that, the darkness in the cave turned bright. Marquis Irene, who was walking through the long cave, bit her tongue and looked at the people guarding her. 930,000. 790,000. Their power was too high for her to even try to tackle. Furthermore, these were just the minions. Marquis level wasn't something that could go against them, so this was a disastrous situation for her. Originally, their clan was tall and beautiful. However, even the man with a strong power had wounds all over his body, and the left side of his head was blown off. It didn't seem like his condition was good. He isn't recovering? Demons have regenerative powers, so they can't have scars on their bodies. However, these two demons have many scars that make them look like humans wearing ragged clothes, and not people of their clan. From green skin to green eyes, everything was appalling. "Stop staring, bitch. The king doesn't like such things." One-armed demon with 790,000 power warned her. He was watching her every move. It wasn't to escort her, but because she had her chest out in the open. "You stop staring too." Even though she was a warrior, she was a woman. If someone continued to stare, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Marquis Irene asked the demon, "What about you? Why are you following me?" They were calling someone Night King. As there were no guards, it meant that this was a lawless area. She wondered who was the leader of these monsters. What is that person's ability? She wanted to know the strength, but strangely, she couldn't read the numbers anymore. It was because of the ability she heard of. She narrowed her eyes. The fact that there isn't just one ability. Here, Marquis Irene was sure of one thing. The person called Night King preyed on his people, and there is a high chance that he had many abilities. Predation was the only way to have multiple abilities. Tack. "I told you to stop staring." As such, the demon with 790,000 power grabbed her wrist and warned her. However, contrary to the warning, his face was smiling as if he wanted to hold her. "Let go." She shook off the hand. It was unpleasant just to be touched by such people. "Where the hell are you taking me?" She was convinced that there were no good intentions here, because the one called Night King, who was walking ahead, was treating her like a possession, grabbed her chest. "High grade." That was what he said. From her point of view, this was one trouble after another. This felt like another threat. However, when he looked at the symbol of Grand Duke Kaliaf on her bottoms, he moved back. He's familiar with the Grand Duke? That was the part that gave her hope. She hoped that the Night King had a good relationship with the Grand Duke or was afraid of him. But the worst thing was, What if they were enemies? If so, she would be torn apart. A demon with 790,000 power spoke with a smile. You will soon be surprised. What did that mean? She was thinking throughout the walk. As she was walking, her face turned thinner. It's heavy. Gravity wasn't constant, and it kept getting stronger inside the dungeon. It was tough to breathe. However, these prisoners who were beside her seemed fine. Are they used to this? In that case, their strength was understandable. Growing up in this horrible environment for a long time, one would have no choice but to evolve according to it. Whisper. And then came the noise. There were a lot of whispers from the prisoners around, and eventually, she understood what was happening when they reached the end. Shit. Marquis Irene couldn't keep her mouth shut. About 300 prisoners were sitting and talking. Never had she imagined that so many demons would be alive here. However, there was even more shocking than that. No way. The figure wasn't leaving her eye. She looked at them one by one, each had the power of Marquis level. What is this place? Weak. As they looked at the Night King enter, the demons all rose and knelt with one knee. Night King. Marquis Irene trembled at that sight. Their voices didn't matter. What terrified her was that so many monsters called him their king. Shoo. As if accustomed, the Night King raised his hand and then passed. Woman. Look at her age. Must be delicious. Gulp. When they saw her half-naked, they were all interested. Marquis Irene was still having difficulty walking with her upper body out open for these savages to see. And not here. I need to run. She thought in her head, but she couldn't do anything. The one-eyed demon with 930,000 power held her so she couldn't walk. Well, he was doing even more than that. He was dragging her. Pack. Her toes would hit the stairs as the demons opened the path for them, going up to the highest point in the dungeon. She looked at the ground, which had rags on it. Inside, the weird hut looked like a fortress. What are they? When she saw two demons standing in front of the hut, she felt terrified, wondering if her eyes were mistaken. 5.83 million. 6.23 million? How could such strong ones be here? Surprisingly, they had fewer wounds than the other demons, and were far more robust. Pack. They knelt with one knee in front of the Night King. You have arrived. Night King. They got up and followed him inside after he raised his hand. She was curious about this Night King who made sure that even those with Duke-level power kneeled at him. In the hut that she was dragged into, she saw the Night King sitting on a seat, carved out of stone. He had wrinkles that had the years of life as if he had been through a long time. What scared her was his green eyes. Amidst the silence, he then spoke. What is your relationship with Grand Duke Kaliaf? It was a creepy and bizarre voice. She pondered how to respond wisely and finally said, I serve him. She answered very cautiously and looked at him with tensed eyes. I see. That gray hair, you must be Duke Bevman's. How do you know that? She was shocked at the words of the man who knew her identity. If he could figure out her identity quickly, then he had someone close to Grand Duke Kaliaf, or he was close to him. Who are? Pack. Ack. Someone kicked her shoulder. It was the demon with 930,000 power. Who told you to talk and ask questions as you please? Marquis Irene, who didn't receive this kind of treatment from Grand Duke's side, shouted in rage. You will regret this. I didn't come here as a prisoner. There was an accident. Accident? Night King was puzzled by it. What do you mean? Grand Duke and Pa, no, my father, Duke Bevman, will come to save me from this accident. She paused there. She wanted to threaten with some certainty, but their power was too strong. Then she continued. If Grand Duke Kaliaf steps in, all of you could be in danger. The moment he heard that, the Night King laughed. Hwahahaha. He was laughing in a strange voice that sounded like something was screeching. After he stopped laughing, he said with light shining from his green eyes. Good. What do you mean? Well, I wanted to kill that bastard with my hands. Very good. This has to be Larisha's blessing. Larisha? She didn't know the old name of Arisha. Night King screeched, laughed at her. This little one doesn't even know that. Night King motioned as if he was pulling her, and her body on the ground suddenly rose and moved to him. She tried to kick and defend herself. Pack. However, Night King was quick to grab her ankle. Holding her by the ankle, he tore off the clothes left on her. Quack. Her clothes were torn in the same way before, but now she was completely naked. She wasn't used to close combat, therefore, her physique wasn't as muscular as the others. Your body looks great. Let go. You must really want to die. She shouted at him with rage. She never dreamed about such a humiliation. If the Grand Duke and Papa know about this, they will turn you to ashes, quack. He twirled her and grabbed her by the wrist. Right. It would be great if Kaliaf cares enough to come and save you, then I should treat you with the most sincerity. Sincerity? Let's make you feel pleasure like never before. The Night King lowered his pants, and she screamed as she looked at the monstrous thing between his legs. Don't do this. Kaliaf and Bevman will be pleased, seeing you turn into a woman. She looked terrified at it. Looking at her like that, Night King smiled and grabbed her by the waist, pulling her closer to him. Her eyes widened, and she screamed in shock. The demons in the hut were only watching them with fascination in their eyes. It was then. Growling. Suddenly, the hut shook. To be precise, the floor shook, the whole place shook. The subordinates didn't even understand what was happening. What is this? Quang. And then a loud roar was heard from outside. The demons under the hurt were looking at each other. The fun needs to be pushed back. Pack. Night King pushed her away and tossed her aside before going out. When he went out, the demons surrounded someone in a circle in the square below. It looked like he had different clothes on. The man who landed was wearing a black suit, and he had a fair face. It was no other than Chen Yuan. Who the hell is he? The demons mumbled at the sudden appearance of Chen Yuan. No matter how much they looked, they didn't understand who this different being was. Shoo! And then another one fell from above. The one who fell was wearing a red cloak and a golden crown. It was Grand Duke Kaliaf. Looking at the hole in the ceiling, the Grand Duke spoke as if it was absurd. Is this how the path is made? Master? Then, were you planning to wander through the caves? Chen Yuan casually answered. The demons couldn't hide their shock at the conversation. The vibration they felt just now was because this man had come down? What? A hole in the cave? The dungeon of Bamut is known to be strong and sturdy. It was so strong that no one could burrow and escape. Shoo! Tack! Then someone else fell in. It was a man with white hair and armor, Duke Bevman. Quack! Duke Bevman bent his knee due to the sudden change of gravity. He couldn't adapt to the sudden change inside. Following Chen Yuan and Grand Duke Kaliaf, he landed only to be shocked looking at the demons around. This? A cry echoed through the place. Papa! Hearing the voice, Duke Bevman automatically looked at the top. A naked woman was crawling on the floor. It was Marquis Irene. Irene. Seeing Duke Bevman come here, the Night King's cheeks shook in excitement. His green eyes looked at Grand Duke Kaliaf. You plunged to your hell, Kaliaf. Chapter 203. Bamut Underground Prison. Part 3. Kaliaf. Grand Duke Kaliaf looked up at the bizarre voice calling him from the top. Green eyes and green skin stood out from the monster, who wore a rag-like black coat. With a puzzled expression at the unfamiliar sight, Grand Duke Kaliaf asked, "You know the Grand Duke, prisoner?" The expressions of the demons who heard the word prisoner instantly showed their anger, as they hated being treated like prisoners who were confined in this hell. You. Prisoner? Usually, demons were frightened by the Grand Duke's presence, but their horrible days at the prison only filled them with hostility. Even Night King was wearing a strange expression as he licked his palms. Does he not recognize me? The Night King's eyes were filled with disappointment. I asked if you knew me, prisoner. Grand Duke Kaliaf asked again. The Night King grinned and said, You hypocritical fake. Nothing has changed over the years. Hypocritical fake? The Grand Duke raised his eyebrows. He was seeing this prisoner for the first time, but this prisoner had not insulted him. Duke Bevman was uneasy. Your Highness, my daughter, I know. Grand Duke Kaliaf had seen her right away, but judging from the current atmosphere, it seemed like they would have to deal with the prisoners before bringing back Marquis Irene. However, it felt strange. Is he leading the prisoners? The prisoners in Bamut weren't friends, but they all stood still and surrounded the area, as if waiting for someone's order. Grand Duke Kaliaf looked at the Night King and said, I guess being imprisoned isn't enough as you wish to be killed, prisoner. Killed? Ha ha ha. Killed. The Night King laughed in a bizarre way, pointing at the Grand Duke and shouting. You think this is the same place as the outside you came from? You just entered into hell, by opening the gates with your own hands. Ha 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 ha. Kulkul kulkul. The demons laughed at those words, but then they heard someone's voice. For being prisoners, they sure make a lot of noise. It was the voice of Chen Yuan. Even the Night King, who only cared about Grand Duke Kaliaf, turned, he asked, with a ghastly glow. You're a human? At his words, the other demons mumbled. Even though they thought that something was off about him, they didn't think he could be human. What? Night King was puzzled. Even the environment outside the prison was difficult for a human to survive, but this human not only opened the path into Bamut, but was able to speak without difficulty. Is this a bluff? Night King thought Chen Yuan was bluffing. It was difficult to hold on in Bamut. Even he suffered during his first several months in this place. However, something strange began to happen. PSSS. Duke Bevman was shocked at the black smoke coming from his nose. What is this? He knew that he wasn't feeling well since he had landed in Bamut, but this strange feeling was only confirmed when he realized that he wasn't able to move his body. Bevman? Your age. Highness, something is strange. Grand Duke Kaliaf frowned. He, too, had been protecting his body with demonic power since this environment was different. However, if even a duke couldn't stand the conditions, then this place surely was horrible to stay in. Among the demons on the hill looking down at the newcomers, one with muscles smiled and spoke to the Night King. He is enjoying the benefits of Bamut. Even if he was a duke, everyone in Bamut received the same treatment and suffered the same effects. A yellow-lipped demon on the other side smiled as he said, You will soon realize that this place is hell. Bamut was the worst place for demons. The moment they realized its secret, they were sure to experience despair. The Night King raised his hand and commanded, You may kill all but Kaliaf. Wah. As soon as the command fell, the demons rushed towards Chen Yuan's group at once. Around 300 or so scar-covered demons joined in the frenzy as Grand Duke Kaliaf grinned while looking at them. So adorable. The Night King seemed to have increased the courage of the other demon prisoners with his orders. However, the Grand Duke was a warrior, was familiar with fighting hordes of enemies. In a voice full of excitement, he said to Chen Yuan, "There is no need for Master to come forward. I will deal with this on my own." "Your Highness." When Duke Bevman tried to step in, Grand Duke assured him that he would be fine. "You, get used to this place first." The Duke's condition didn't seem too good, so he couldn't just put the Duke aside. The Grand Duke decided that it would be better to clear a few demons before the fight became more serious, which would give Bevman time to recover. Otherwise, Marquis Irene would be in danger. Fat. Grand Duke Kaliaf stretched out his hand as the opposing demons rushed in. He tried to manipulate space by changing it into its marbling form, which would allow him to deal with multiple demons at once. Seeing this, the Night King's eyes shone as he smiled and said, "Stupid attempt. Whoa. Huh?" When the Grand Duke tried to use his ability, the manipulated space instantly went back to normal. How? He couldn't understand it. No matter how much he tried to use his spatial manipulation ability, the space kept returning back to its original form. Grand Duke was bewildered. This was the first time he had ever experienced this. Quahaha. The demons next to the hut on the hill all laughed. They thought that the Grand Duke would be different from the other demons they had dealt with, but even he seemed to struggle like the rest. The demon, who had 6.23 million combat power, groaned. "You didn't adapt to Bamut either as expected. What could you do in a place where powers are completely changed, no matter how strong you are?" This was the secret of Bamut. The abilities that used demonic powers were nullified or reversed due to the opposing force inside the prison cell. From the Grand Duke to the rest of the demons, everyone was scared. They had all adapted to this place over many years and survived by fighting amongst themselves. "Quackukuk. You look ridiculous, Kaliaf." The Night King looked at him and laughed. He had been waiting for this day to come, and it finally did. Here, even the strongest demons outside the prison became weak and powerless. "You are all done for." The demons ran in like a swarm of bees, trying to sting Grand Duke Kaliaf to the bone. Savoring the scene, the Night King looked down. However, when will this end? Chen Yuan stepped ahead as he asked those words. "Master, wait a minute." Shoo. In the unexpected situation in which his ability didn't work, Grand Duke Kaliaf tried to use Advanced Awakening by covering himself. However, the awakening could only happen when demonic power was condensed and exploded out instantaneously, and in a place where demonic power couldn't be used, that would never happen. Enough. Just stay still. Grand Duke Kaliaf was flustered, coughing in response and saying nothing. Idiot. If Kaliaf couldn't do anything, what can you do? TSK. Night King clicked his tongue as he saw Chen Yuan step up. He had planned to kill everyone but Kaliaf, but now this human was digging his grave with his own hands. It was that moment. Kwang. Chen Yuan, who had been walking, stepped ahead as the floor was ripped away except for the land around Grand Duke Kaliaf, and Bevman and stone pillars came out. Papa Pack. Quack. Ack. The demons who were running at the front had their bodies slammed by the pillars, and some were even pierced by them. Seeing this, the Night King and his men frowned. No. How is he using his powers? In order to use abilities and demonic power, one had to adapt to the environment, but this human was just casually showing off his powers. Damn it. Avoid the pillars and attack. However, the demons here had more combat experience than those outside the prison and were evil to the core. After the first time, they managed to move without being hit the stone pillars. I don't know how you're doing it, but your ability won't damage us anymore. Die. 5 demons ran towards Chen Yuan at the same time, but Chen Yuan kept stepping forward. Abilities spewed out from the hands of the 5 demons who were ready to take down Chen Yuan. It was then. Puck. 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 Quack. Ack. Invisible swords with a black energy appeared in the air and pierced their cores. Before their attacks could even reach Chen Yuan, they had turned to ash, leaving the other demons perplexed. What? How did that happen? Step. Chen Yuan kept walking forward, not paying attention as he headed towards the hill. As expected of Master. Bevman. Yes, Your Highness. Grand Duke Kaliaf and Duke Bevman followed behind Chen Yuan, wondering why they couldn't use their abilities when Chen Yuan seemed to be fine. What are you doing? Kill them. A one-armed subordinate shouted from the top of the hill. Thankful that they had only witnessed the slaughter and hadn't been at the front of the attack, rest of the demons hesitated to move. What is this? Despite shouting from top, the demon was confused. The human was just walking, yet the sense of intimidation made them cower. Are those idiots down there scared? They were supposed to be warriors who didn't fear death, but seeing this, it seemed that they couldn't step out in face of the overwhelming power. Why isn't he affected by Bamut? Even the Night King was confused. Among the prisoners imprisoned there, some of them came from Talish's clan, and even they turned powerless when they first came to Bamut. TSK. Either way, it didn't matter that much. If this continued, the morale of the demons would crumble, so he had to do something. The Night King looked at the 2 demons who were stronger than the dukes and had 5 and 6 million combat power. You need to go. Yes, we'll take care of it. I will destroy that human. The 2 demons moved down while looking at the demons scared of Chen Yuan. Looking at their backs, the Night King knew he could rely on them as they were the strongest demons imprisoned in Bamut besides the Night King. The one-armed demon spoke to Marquis Irene, who was lying on the ground helplessly. Woman, this will be a glorious sight. What? Those 2 were the monsters who fought for the top spot before Night King came. As long as they are there, no one can win. At that, Marquis Irene soon burst into laughter as her haggard face formed a smile for the first time since coming to Bamut. Ha! The one-armed demon, who was displeased initially, became annoyed at her reaction. Have you gone crazy, woman? You are mistaken. What? None of you here made my left eye burst. Your left eye? The demon didn't know about her ability and asked what she was talking about. In response, she looked at 2 demons who were walking towards Chen Yuan and said, How long will those 2 last? Grab. Quack. The one-eyed demon grabbed her by the hair. The more I talk to you, the crazier you seem, bitch. How long will they last? Fine. Should we make a bet then? Since there's nothing left of my left arm, I'll bet my right arm. Slash. The clear sound of something being cut resounded in the area. The most unbelievable thing then happened. A black line appeared in the necks of the 2 demons who were walking down, the strongest after the Night King. Their necks sleekly slid to the side and fell to the ground. Thud. Roll. The heads rolled to reveal their faces, which had clueless expressions as they were oblivious to what had happened to them. All the demons at the bottom were shocked and couldn't say a word. There was one demon in particular. That. The one-armed demon, who boldly said he would risk his remaining arm, couldn't complete his sentence.